A male bonobo has more testosterone than a male chimpanzee. It's a fact that nobody mentions. And since bonobos are one of the most peaceful, cooperative, female-led primate species we've ever studied, if you've heard the standard story about testosterone, that it's the biological engine behind male dominance and aggression, that one fact should make the whole thing feel a little unstable. It gets messier from there. We've been handed a very clean story about why men and women are different. Testosterone makes men dominant, aggressive, prone to violence. The behavioral differences between the sexes are basically just hardware, fixed at birth, biological, not up for debate. And I want to say something clearly before we go any further. Some biological differences between men and women are real. I'm not going to stand here and pretend otherwise. That would be its own kind of dishonest. What I am going to argue is that the story you've been handed about why those differences exist and what they actually mean is mostly wrong. And the science behind that is genuinely some of the most interesting material I've dug into in a while. Let's start with the hormone everyone apparently already has a PhD in: testosterone. Ask the average person what testosterone does, and you'll get something like, it makes men aggressive, dominant, competitive. It's basically the biological alibi for everything from road rage to why certain people keep interrupting everyone else in meetings. Here's Robert Sapolsky, professor at Stanford, studies hormones and the brain for a living. He spent years specifically looking at how testosterone operates across different species. And here's what he found. Testosterone does not cause aggression. What it actually does is make you more sensitive to social cues about status. That's the whole mechanism. That's it. If you're in an environment where aggression is how you climb, where that's what earns respect, where that's how you protect your position, testosterone amplifies that behavior. But if your environment rewards cooperation, patience, caregiving, testosterone amplifies those instead. The hormone has no preference for which direction it pushes you. It just turns up the volume on whatever the room is already playing. Sapolsky actually has a line I keep coming back to. In our world, riddled with male violence, the problem isn't that testosterone can increase levels of aggression. The problem is the frequency with which we reward aggression. Read that again slowly. The hormone isn't the problem. The reward system is the problem. Now, back to the bonobo. We share about 98.7% of our DNA with both chimpanzees and bonobos. Equal. They're tied as our closest living relatives. Chimpanzees live in male-dominated societies. Males fight for rank. Alpha males hold power through aggression, intimidation, and political alliances. Jane Goodall documented this for decades. Bonobos are completely different, female-led, largely peaceful. When tension builds, they resolve it through social bonding, not violence. No recorded cases of lethal aggression between bonobos in the wild. Here's the part that should stop you cold. Bonobos have higher baseline testosterone than chimpanzees. The more peaceful species, the cooperative one, the one run by females, has more testosterone in their bodies. So if testosterone is supposed to be the biological engine of male dominance and aggression, why does the species with the most of it build the most peaceful society on record? Sapolsky's answer: testosterone was never driving. It was always in the passenger seat. Let's run a thought experiment. Picture a classic caveman. Let's call him Grug. Big guy, strong guy, very proud of himself after a successful hunt. Grug came back to camp one day and helped himself to the best cut of meat. The group quietly stopped talking to him. Nobody shared food. Nobody invited him along next time. Eventually, Grug figured it out. The point was simple. The group's social structure not anything written into Grug's biology, determined what behavior was acceptable. Now I want to run the same guy through a completely different world. Same Grug, same body, same testosterone. This time he's living with the AKA people of Central Africa. Barry Hewlett is an anthropologist at Washington State University who has spent his entire career living with and studying the AKA. What he found is that AKA fathers spend more than 47% of their waking hours holding or caring for their infants, more than any other group of fathers ever documented by researchers anywhere on Earth. And when Aka fathers hold their babies, their testosterone drops measurably. Picture Grug sitting with an infant in his lap. The same guy from the last story, same biology, same hormone levels going in. But now he's in a world where this is what men do, where this is what's respected, where this is normal. And his body is responding to that world. Grug in a society that rewards aggression, the guy hoarding the meat. Grug in a society that rewards taking care of people, the guy who is, and I'm not making this up, better at settling the baby than his wife is. Same Grug, every time. Here's the part that I think actually breaks the standard argument wide open. Most people picture the relationship between testosterone and behavior like this. High testosterone leads to dominant, aggressive behavior. Linear, clean, settled science. Sapolsky's research shows it runs the other direction too. Dominant behavior leads to testosterone going up. When you win a competition, testosterone spikes. When people treat you publicly like you have high status, it spikes. When someone defers to you, it spikes. The testosterone isn't producing the dominance. The social situation is producing the dominance, and the testosterone is just showing up afterward. Like that friend who arrives 2 hours late but somehow ends up in every photo from the party. There's a study that makes this almost impossible to dismiss. 1994, World Cup Final, Brazil versus Italy. Researchers collected saliva samples from fans of both teams, before the game and after. Brazil won. Brazilian fans' testosterone rose 27.6%. Italian fans' testosterone dropped 26.7%. Nobody in those bars was competing. Nobody was fighting. They were watching other people kick a ball around a field. Some of them were watching it on television, and their hormone levels moved with the scoreboard anyway, because their sense of social status moved with it. Your hormones are reading the room. They are not writing the rules. Before I keep going, I want to get ahead of something, because I know exactly where the comments are going to go. Nobody in this video is saying that biological differences between men and women don't exist. Men average higher testosterone, real. Men average greater upper body strength, real. There are documented average structural differences between male and female brains at the population level, also real. I'm not disputing any of that. What I'm pushing back on is the jump, the leap from these differences exist on average to therefore they're fixed, natural, and explain everything we see playing out in society. Because the moment you look at the variation within each group, the story gets complicated fast. The spread of testosterone levels among men is enormous. Some men run lower than many women. Some women run higher than many men. The overlap between the two groups is massive. A story about group averages tells you almost nothing about the actual person standing in front of you. And here's what really should unsettle the "it's just biology" argument. If testosterone-fueled aggression were the hardwired default for human males, you'd expect to see it everywhere. Consistent, cross-cultural, cross-historical. You don't. The Mosuo of southwestern China have lived for centuries in a matrilineal society. Property and family lineage pass through the mother, not the father. Men don't traditionally live with their romantic partners. Children are raised by the mother's family. When researchers have asked Mosuo people what life is like there, one thing that comes up consistently is this: virtually no divorce, no homelessness, and by their own account, significantly less domestic violence than in the patrilineal communities nearby. The Minangkabau of West Sumatra, 4.2 million people, the largest matrilineal society on Earth, show the same patterns, same species, same hormones, different social structure, different outcomes. If this were biology, it wouldn't move like that. You don't get to have deeply different rates of male violence depending on whether property passes through your mother or your father, unless the social structure is doing most of the work. So here's where I land. Biology matters. Obviously. It would be absurd to say otherwise, but biology and the world you live in are not two separate machines running in parallel. They're in constant conversation. Your testosterone is responding to your environment right now. The environment you grew up in shaped how your body learned to respond. That environment was built by choices, thousands of years of choices. And choices, at least theoretically, can be made differently. The argument that biology is destiny, that men are aggressive because testosterone, period, nothing to examine, is not a scientific claim. It's a way of shutting down the examination before it starts. It takes something genuinely complicated and makes it sound like a law of physics. Because if it's just nature, there's nothing to look at, nothing to question, nothing that was ever different, nothing that could be. Sapolsky put it this way: we want to believe that biology causes behavior. What we actually need to understand is that behavior shapes biology just as much as biology shapes behavior. That's the part the clean story never includes. So the next time someone tells you men are just built this way, think about Grug with the baby in his lap and what that does to his hormone levels. Think about Italian fans in 1994. Watching Brazil celebrate from a bar, testosterone dropping 26.7% because their team lost a game they weren't even playing in. Think about the bonobo. More testosterone than a chimpanzee, choosing to share rather than dominate because that's what its world rewards. The clean version of this story is easy to hold on to. It just doesn't survive contact with the evidence. All the research is linked below if you want to dig deeper. But testosterone isn't the only biological myth we've been sold. If you want to see how the whole concept of the alpha male was actually based on a deeply flawed study of captive wolves, click the video on your screen right now. I'll see you over there.